Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Zero Hour. Joining us now is Dr. Sanjeev Sriram, also known as the host of the Dr. America program, which is debuting this weekend on the We Act Radio Network. Sanjeev, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, RJ.
It's always great talking with you. And listen, in our last hour, we interviewed Amanda Turkle, reporter with the Huffington Post, about the madness that's going on around the country regarding Ebola and the fact that politicians are capitalizing on the fear, the fact that there's a woman in Oklahoma who's been asked not to reappear at her Sunday school for 3 weeks after she comes back from Africa, even though she's going to Rwanda, thousands of miles from where there's any known infection. So, but you're doing more than just analyzing the situation and reporting on it in terms of Ebola fear. You've actually got a petition going. Why don't you tell us a little about that, if you would?
Yeah, thanks so much. The petition is actually a pretty simple demand on Governor Chris Christie. We are demanding that he apologize to nurse Kaci Hickox for the police treatment that he gave this American hero for no other crime than going to West Africa and taking care of Ebola victims. Nurse Kaci Hickox was asymptomatic on her arrival to the airport, and she was unjustly and unfairly held in a room for a couple of hours before being escorted with 8 police cars, sirens blaring, like lights going off, to a hospital tent with no running water and just a porta potty to use for her restroom needs, all despite being completely asymptomatic. And this is completely against medical advice and public health guidelines. And the petition is demanding that Chris Christie offer Nurse Kaci Hickox an apology, repeal the state mandatory police quarantine, and abide by the guidelines set forth by the CDC and Doctors Without Borders.
Now, there are a couple implications of this that I think your petition zeroes in on a little bit. One of them is that, first of all, it's personally inhumane, violation of civil liberties. Secondly, it's complete ignoring a medical protocol. You're a physician as well as a master of public health, and these are normally decisions best left to the doctors. I believe Chris Christie even said at one point that she was symptomatic when she wasn't. I think he actually got into diagnosing her, didn't he?
Correct. And she actually did the valiant and courageous truth-talking about pointing out that he had never laid eyes on her, that he had no business making a diagnosis about her at press events.
And I don't believe that he is a physician or medical professional either.
That's right. He has a JD, not an MD.
And a JD, when I was young, used to stand for juvenile delinquent. But that's... So you're a physician, you're a doctor, you've got your own program, Dr. America, you've got this petition. I think the other piece of it, besides the sort of practicing medicine without a license piece, there are two pieces that bother me a little bit, since, we've talked about the fact that community health, collective health, social health is, for lack of a better term, moral and spiritual as well as political and physical. So on those other dimensions of our collective health, it disturbs me, number one, strictly pragmatically, what the experts tell me, if I'm reading them correctly, is that if we start intimidating people away, medical professionals like Kaci Hickox, from going to West Africa and treating Ebola cases, the net result will be a lot more people with Ebola, and perhaps paradoxically, to a simpler mind, like some people we could mention, could actually lead to more Ebola cases, even in this country, right?
This is absolutely true, and I actually really encourage listeners and viewers to consider that when HIV and AIDS, was first striking the United States, the stigmas that were attached to this disease were devastating in controlling and stopping and preventing that epidemic. It was considered a gay plague. It was, the people who caught it were somehow, morally deficient or criminal. And as a result, that social stigma spilled into the practice of medicine. Doctors were reluctant and hesitant to take care of these patients. They did not want, those who did not want to publicly have their name and care associated with stopping this epidemic. And it really did hinder public health. Similarly, if we decide that we're going to turn caring into a crime, like we did with nurse Kaci Hickox, if we're going to turn, caring into a crime, then we need to, understand that we are going to suffer similar consequences where otherwise very talented, very competent, very, intelligent doctors are going to hesitate about offering their assistance, offering their care to patients who really, really need it, especially for a disease like Ebola, which is far less contagious than HIV.
Well, and I have to say, I fear, for lack of a better term, I fear for our nation's karma, for lack of a better term, if we actually start criminalizing and ostracizing and punishing people for courageously and selflessly going to treat the ill in another part of the world. And I guess that gets me to the last piece of this, and we're talking with Dr. Sanjeev Sriram, Dr. America. His program debuts this weekend. He has a petition on Ebola, which is, as you know, Chris Christie is not the only politician to politicize this. And next door, to make this a bipartisan issue, next door, Democratic Governor Democratic Governor Andrew Cuomo did the same thing. Do you feel that by targeting your petition against Governor Christie, you can also have an impact on the other governors around the country who are tempted to politicize this issue?
I hope so, because the petition does add one more line where we are encouraging Governor Christie to show that he is sincere in his apology, that he will not only repeal the state mandatory police quarantine, but that he will also encourage other governors in New York, Minnesota, Illinois to follow his lead and to lead a responsible science-based movement of getting rid of these police quarantines in favor of something that's more science and medicine-based. One more small point that I want to make about this is that for a lot of progressives who are sympathetic to the idea of a quarantine, I want to remind them that this is like the quarantine that Governor Christie is talking about is not rooted in evidence. And there are other dangerous policies that are not rooted in evidence, which are thrust upon the American people in the name of supposed security. What comes to mind is stop and frisk, voter suppression, stand your ground. None of these policies are rooted in evidence. They are rooted in fear. They are rooted in assumptions about things and people that other Americans are told to fear. And this is not what our country is supposed to be about. And so if progressives really want their policies to be evidence-based, if they really want their public actions to not be rooted in fear, they need to look at these state quarantines with the same scrutiny that they would look at stop and frisk, stand your ground, and voter suppression.
And I would add to that, the last major policy decision our nation made without evidence or against the evidence was the invasion of Iraq. And that didn't turn out so well either.
There you go.
So, hey, listen, you make a great point. I can't wait to hear your show. Where can people find, in 10 seconds, where can people find this petition?
So the petition is available on the WEAC Radio Network website. So when you go to check out the 0 Hour or Dr. America on the WEAC Radio Network website, you'll find the petition there.
Okay, great. So Google that and look for Dr. Sanjeev Sriram's program, Dr. America. We will be right back after this. I am Richard RJ Eskow, and this is The 0